Some things you replay over and over. This one, I wish I could forget. It's strange how certain moments stay with you, not because they made sense, but because they didn't. I never talked about it much. Maybe because it always felt easier to tell myself it was nothing. But the truth is, there was this night, and no matter how much time passes, I can't shake it. I can still see that cellar in my mind, clearer than I want to. The way the corners stayed hidden, swallowed up by shadows, no matter how much my eyes adjusted. There was this weak orange glow coming from the old wood stove in the far corner, just enough light to make everything else feel darker. I remember the smell of the damp earth floor mixed with the sharp, dry scent of wood smoke. And that cold, it wasn't the kind of cold that made you shiver, exactly. It was the kind that settled into your skin, slow and heavy, like the whole place was holding its breath. We were playing our usual game, the one we made up every time we visited. It felt like tradition by then. My cousins and I, we'd chase each other through that cellar like monsters, hiding behind the old crates and rusted tools, trying to scare each other. It was dumb, probably, but at that age it felt like the best kind of thrill. I remember thinking that if I acted scared, they'd laugh at me. So I pushed it down, that small voice telling me that maybe the dark wasn't as harmless as we pretended. I wanted so badly to be brave, to prove I wasn't the youngest in the room anymore, even though I was. And I think that's why I didn't pay attention to how strange the air felt down there that night, thicker somehow, like the walls were listening. It was easy to forget how alone we really were, tucked away beneath that old house. Easy to forget, until it wasn't. It's strange how fast a moment can change everything. 1 second, we were still playing, still half laughing as we crept around that cellar, and the next, I felt frozen. I had glanced at that small, dirty window near the ceiling, and there it was, this shape, just beyond the glass. At first, I thought maybe it was a branch or some piece of equipment outside, but it wasn't shaped right, and it wasn't still in the way things that belong outside usually are. I kept telling myself to stop staring at it, to just move on, but I couldn't. My eyes stayed locked, waiting for it to shift, to prove itself one way or the other. My heart felt like it was beating up in my throat. I don't even think I was breathing right then. I wanted to say something, to get the others to look, because if they saw it too, maybe it wouldn't feel so heavy, so real. But at the same time, I think I was scared of what it would mean if they did see it. I stood there, listening to the sound of my cousins' feet scuffing across the floor, their muffled voices bouncing off the stone walls. I felt miles away from them in that moment, like I'd stepped into something the rest of them couldn't see. And the longer I stared at that shape, the more certain I became that it was staring right back. What sticks with me isn't some big dramatic thing. It's that small moment, that quiet little detail that made everything feel wrong. We'd gone back down after trying to shake off the tension, telling ourselves maybe we were just being dumb kids, letting shadows get to us. I remember glancing toward that old wooden crate by the stairs where we'd left the flashlight earlier, and it was just gone. The crate was bare, except for a thin layer of dust where the flashlight had been sitting. I froze, just staring at that empty space like it might suddenly make sense if I looked at it long enough. Maybe we'd kicked it over without noticing, I told myself. Maybe one of us grabbed it and forgot. But deep down I already knew none of that was true. We weren't the kind of kids to forget something like that, not in a place that dark where that flashlight felt like our lifeline. And besides, if one of us had it, why hadn't they said anything? The cellar felt different after that. It stopped feeling like ours, like the safe, familiar place we'd turned into a playground every winter. I remember how the air seemed colder, heavier, like the walls had shifted somehow. I kept glancing around at the shadows, expecting to see someone, or something, standing just out of reach. That missing flashlight was proof in a way that nothing else had been. Proof that we weren't as alone as we wanted to believe. I remember the way my feet felt heavy on the stairs, like part of me didn't really want to know what I was about to find. I tried to act like I was just wandering up for no reason. Maybe looking for a snack or checking on something. Anything that didn't make me seem scared. But really I was hoping, almost begging to see that someone was missing. If just one person wasn't there, maybe my uncle, maybe my older cousin, then I could let out the breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. That would have made everything easier to explain. But when I stepped into the living room, they were all there. Every single one of them crowded around the fire like they always did at night. The room smelled like pine and smoke and something cooking in the kitchen, warm and familiar, and that somehow made it worse. They were laughing, talking quietly, completely unaware of what was creeping under their feet. That wave of cold that hit me wasn't from the cellar air I'd left behind. It was inside me, settling deep, because now I knew. I stood there for a second too long, just watching them, as if looking harder might change what I was seeing. But it didn't. No one was missing. No one was outside, and that meant whoever I'd seen, whatever had taken that flashlight, didn't belong in our world, in that house, in that night we thought was safe. Going back down those stairs felt like walking into something I didn't understand, but I told myself it would be better if we just checked, that maybe somehow seeing nothing would make the knot in my stomach loosen. But when we stepped into that cold, heavy dark again, the window was just a window, no shape, no figure, no proof of what I thought I saw. For a second I let myself hope that maybe I really had imagined it, that maybe I'd worked myself up over nothing, but that feeling didn't last. Because the thing is, the empty window didn't make me feel safer. It made everything worse. It meant whoever, whatever, had been there wasn't gone. They were just somewhere else. Somewhere we couldn't see. I kept glancing at the corners, at the shadows under the stairs, at the places the wood stove's glow didn't reach. Every creak of the floor, every soft scrape of my cousin's shoes, set my nerves on edge. I tried to act normal, laughed a little too loud, pretended I was fine, but inside my mind wouldn't stop running ahead. I kept thinking about what might happen next, what we'd do if that figure stepped out of the dark again. I didn't want to play anymore. I just wanted to go back upstairs. But we stayed, because somehow it felt like leaving would mean giving in to whatever was out there, watching. I don't think anything in my life has ever felt as unreal as that moment when the lights finally came on. For a second, my brain didn't even register what I was looking at. There he was, a man I'd never seen before, just sitting in that beat-up chair like it was his place, like he'd been there all along waiting for us. His hands rested on his knees, calm as could be, and he didn't move right away. He just stared, and I stared back, frozen. It was like my body stopped being mine, like I was somewhere above it watching this scene play out, watching this stranger with a smile that didn't belong. Not a friendly smile, not even a mean one, just empty, like he knew something we didn't. My heart didn't race the way I thought it would. It felt hollow, like the sound had been sucked out of the room along with the air. I couldn't even tell if my cousins were next to me anymore. All I could see was that man, the cracked window behind him, and the way his eyes didn't leave us. I wanted to run, to scream, to do something, but I couldn't. I just stood there waiting for him to move first. And when he finally started to rise, that's when my body kicked back in, and I knew we had to get out. Even after it was over, or what everyone said was over, I couldn't settle. We'd run, we'd cried, we'd spilled everything to the adults, and for once they believed us without questioning. The footprints in the snow outside were the kind of proof you can't argue with, but they didn't give me the relief I thought they would. If anything, they made it worse. Made it real. I remember sitting near the wood stove, the heat not touching that cold knot that had settled deep inside me, listening to the hum of voices as the grown-ups talked in low, serious tones. I wanted to listen to what they were saying, to catch their plan or hear something that would make it all feel safe again, but I couldn't focus. All I could hear was the rush of my own thoughts, loud and messy, replaying every second of that man's face, that empty smile, the way he moved like he had all the time in the world. I kept wondering how long he'd been there before we saw him, how long he'd watched us playing that dumb game, completely unaware. The thought made my skin crawl and I couldn't shake it. That night I kept glancing at every dark corner, every window, sure I'd see him again. Even tucked up against my mom, I couldn't close my eyes without feeling like he was still there, just out of sight. And honestly, I don't think that feeling ever really went away. Even now, no matter where I am, no matter how old I get, I still catch myself looking over my shoulder, just in case. Some nights I still think about it. Not on purpose, it just creeps in. Like my brain can't let it go, like there's something I missed that I'm supposed to figure out. I've tried to tell myself it was nothing, that I made more of it than it was, but that never really sticks. It felt safe back then. That house, that day, all of it, until it didn't. And once it didn't, I don't think it ever really did again. I don't think I even questioned it at first. It was just another birthday, just another backyard filled with noise and voices I knew by heart. The kind of afternoon where the air still held on to the last bits of summer, even though October was already creeping in. You could still smell the grass where it had been mowed earlier that morning, and the edges of the yard were littered with those brittle leaves that hadn't quite fallen yet. Everything felt familiar. The way Uncle Ray's house seemed to open up for us like it always had, with all its rooms and halls and little places that for a while felt like they belonged to us. That's what I held on to, I guess. That feeling that nothing bad could happen in a place that had seen so many birthdays and games and family dinners. It was like the house itself had always been part of it. The way we could hide and chase and laugh without even thinking about what was behind the next door or around the next corner. At the time, I didn't notice anything strange, or maybe I just didn't let myself. There was so much noise, so much movement, so much normal, that it was easy to let my guard down. Looking back, I wonder if that was the mistake, trusting the space, trusting that nothing could slip in without us knowing. I remember the hum of the window fans, the way the sun hit the porch in that lazy golden kind of way. It felt safe. I really believed it was safe. And then all at once, it wasn't. I thought it would be harmless, just a stupid little prank to break up the game. Grab an old blanket off the back of the couch, drape it over one of Aunt Dana's dress forms down in the sewing room, and make it look like someone was hiding there. It was the kind of trick we'd done 100 times, and I could already picture one of my cousins pulling the blanket back, thinking they'd caught someone, only to feel like an idiot. That was the whole point. Just a quick laugh, nothing more. But when I stepped back, something about it felt wrong. The way the blanket fell, too heavy, too real. The dress form wasn't shaped like a person exactly, but under that blanket, in that dim light, it could have been anyone. I stood there a little longer than I meant to, looking at it, waiting for that familiar rush of satisfaction, but it didn't come. The room felt smaller somehow, like I'd filled it with something I didn't mean to. I tried to shake it off, tried to tell myself I was overthinking, but I kept glancing at it while I found my own hiding spot. The blanket didn't look funny anymore. It looked like something waiting, and I hated that it made me feel that way, like I'd set a trap and wasn't sure who it was for. I told myself I'd forget about it, that it was just part of the game, but it stayed in my head longer than it should have. It's strange, the things that stick with you. All the noise that day, the shouting, the laughter, the thudding of feet on stairs. But what I remember clearest is that door, the basement's back door, the one that leads out toward the alley behind Uncle Ray's fence. It wasn't wide open or anything, just cracked, barely enough to notice if you weren't looking. But I was looking, and the moment I saw that sliver of outside light creeping in, my stomach turned just a little. We don't leave that door like that. Not during parties, not with kids running around, not with half the neighborhood knowing we're home. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Maybe one of my cousins ran out for something and didn't shut it tight, or maybe the wind had caught it. But it didn't feel right. The crack felt like an invitation, like the house had left itself exposed in a way it shouldn't have. I couldn't stop glancing at it, couldn't stop imagining that sliver widening on its own. It's funny, at the time I didn't say anything. I didn't want to seem jumpy or paranoid. But I felt it then, that prickle of awareness, like maybe the house wasn't as sealed up as I'd always thought. I kept playing, kept pretending like I didn't see it, but it stayed there in my mind. The door that should have been shut, the door that maybe never should have been opened at all. When Sam called me up for food, I didn't hesitate. I was done with the basement, the heaviness of it, the way the air down there felt stale and still. Stepping out onto the porch felt like breathing again. The sounds of everyone talking over each other, the clatter of plates and forks, the smell of barbecue and birthday cake. It was comforting in a way I didn't even realize I needed. I let the game fall away, let myself just sink into the noise and the light like nothing else mattered. But halfway through my plate, it hit me. That blanket, the one I'd thrown over the dress form, still draped there like some forgotten prop in the dark. I felt this sharp little knot twist in my stomach, like I'd done something wrong without meaning to. I could already picture Aunt Dana's face if she walked in and found it like that. The way she'd frown, not angry but disappointed. That was enough to make me set down my fork. I didn't want to go back down there. I told myself it was just about being respectful, just about fixing what I'd left out of place. But the truth was, something about it felt unfinished, like I'd left a piece of myself down there with it. I thought if I went quick, if I didn't think too hard about it, I could take care of it and be done with that room for good. I really believed it would be that simple. The second I flicked the light on, I felt it, that punch of cold in my chest, like my body knew before my brain could catch up. The blanket, it wasn't where I'd left it. It was lower, slumped, draped over something that didn't match the shape of the dress form. The room felt different too, like the air had gone thicker somehow, like whatever was under that blanket had pulled the walls in closer. I stared, not really understanding at first, just trying to make sense of the outline, the way it hunched, the way it filled the space. And then it moved, barely, like a shift of weight or a breath held too long finally let out. That's when I heard it. The breathing, low, uneven, like someone trying to stay quiet but not quiet enough. It felt like my feet were glued to the floor. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought whoever was under there could probably hear it. I wanted to look away, wanted to back up, but I couldn't do anything but stand there watching. I remember thinking maybe I'd imagined it, that maybe the house was playing tricks, but no, it was real. It was breathing. I still hear it sometimes when the house creaks at night or the wind rattles the windows. That slow, shaky sound that told me I wasn't alone in that room. I don't know why I looked down. Maybe some part of me was desperate for this to make sense. Like if I could just see a pair of sneakers or socks I recognized, it would snap me out of whatever fear was starting to take hold. I thought maybe it was Ben messing around, or one of the older cousins playing a trick that had gone too far. I kept hoping, in that split second, for something normal to be there. But when my eyes dropped to the floor, all that hope drained out of me. They were bare feet. That's what I saw. Bare, unmoving, and darker than the concrete beneath them. And in that instant, I knew. I didn't have to see a face or hear a voice. That was no one from our family, no one we knew. The air seemed to thicken around me, like the room was holding its breath right along with me. That was when the panic hit, not the creeping kind, not the unease that had been gnawing at me since I saw the cracked door, or the blanket in the wrong place. This was sharp, immediate, like my body had finally caught up to what my brain hadn't wanted to believe. I felt like I'd been standing there blind, like the danger had been inches from me the whole time and I hadn't even seen it. And once I saw those feet, it was like I couldn't unsee them, like they were burned into the floor, into my memory, into everything. The house felt different after. Smaller, somehow, like all those open rooms and spaces I'd thought were ours had closed in, turned unfamiliar. I remember the sound of everyone moving through it, the rushed footsteps on the stairs, the doors swinging open too hard, the drawers and closets yanked out like the intruder might just be waiting there to be found. People calling out names, checking corners that had always felt safe, but it was like we were too late before we even started. Like whoever had been in that basement was already long gone, slipping out through whatever crack we'd left behind. I kept waiting for someone else to see what I saw, for someone to spot something. A footprint, a scrap of cloth, anything, so I wouldn't feel like I was losing my grip. I wanted so badly for proof, for the kind of evidence that makes everyone's doubt disappear. But there wasn't anything. Not a sound, not a trace, just the echoes of all of us tearing through the house, and that terrible emptiness where the danger had been. That's the part that won't let go of me. Not that someone got in, though that's bad enough, but that they were there, in our space, in our world, and we almost never knew. They could have stayed hidden. They could have left without a sound, and if I hadn't gone back down there, maybe no one would have known at all. That's what keeps me up sometimes. The thought that whoever it was, they might have been there longer than I realized. Maybe longer than any of us realized. There are some nights that stick with you even when you don't want them to. This one, I don't talk about it much. I used to tell myself it wasn't a big deal, that maybe I made it out to be scarier than it was. But the more I think about it, the more I realize how much I've tried to forget, and no matter how hard I try, it always creeps back in. Like I'm right there again, at the top of those stairs, about to go down. I don't even know why I went down there alone. Looking back, it just doesn't make sense. Aunt Carol's cellar always had this heaviness to it, like the air down there didn't move the same way. It smelled like wet concrete and old wood, and no matter how many times I'd been down there with my cousins, it never felt comfortable. That night though, for whatever reason, I thought I could handle it. Maybe I didn't want to seem like a baby, or maybe I was just bored. But the second my foot hit that bottom step, I regretted it. It was so quiet down there. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring a little, like they're searching for a sound that isn't there. I could hear the faint hum of the freezer in the corner, but even that felt far away. The light bulb above me flickered once, just enough to make my stomach drop, and I found myself glancing back up at the door. It had started to swing inward, slow and steady, like it always did when it wasn't propped open right. But in that moment, it felt like it was closing on purpose, like it wanted to leave me down there alone. I tried to tell myself I was being stupid. It was just a basement, just a door, just bad lighting. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't belong down there, not by myself. My heart was beating faster than it should have been, and I hadn't even done anything yet. I remember standing there for a second, telling myself to go turn on the TV, to just sit down and distract myself. But I didn't move right away. I kept listening, for what I don't know, and that's what still gets to me. I knew something felt wrong before anything even happened. It wasn't loud, not really, but it was just sharp enough, just sudden enough that I froze where I stood. It sounded like something small and solid, maybe a jar, maybe a wrench, hitting the concrete floor back in that little storage room behind the furnace. The kind of sound that shouldn't have happened if no one was down there. For a second, I didn't even breathe. My ears felt like they were straining, waiting for another noise, something to explain it away. But there was nothing, just the low hum of the freezer and that awful heavy silence swallowing everything else. I remember the feeling that came over me, like all the air had been sucked out of the room, like something was watching me, even though I couldn't see anyone. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and it was like my body made the decision before my brain could catch up. I bolted. I don't even remember running up the stairs, just that need to get out, to be near someone who could tell me it was nothing. When I reached the kitchen, I felt silly saying anything, but I blurted it out anyway, that I'd heard something, that maybe someone was down there. Aunt Carol didn't even look up from what she was doing at first. When she finally did, she gave me this soft, almost tired smile, like she was trying to reassure me, but didn't really believe there was anything to worry about. And maybe that's when I started to doubt myself. Maybe I hadn't heard it at all, or maybe I just wanted to believe I hadn't, because that would have been easier than what my gut was telling me. I don't know why I went back down there. I kept telling myself I'd imagined the sound the first time, that I was just being jumpy. I thought if I could just get through it, sit down, maybe play a little on the old TV, I'd feel normal again. But the second I stepped off the stairs, I felt that same weight in the air, the kind that makes your skin feel too tight. I tried to ignore it, tried to act like it was just another basement, just another evening, and then the lights flickered. It was quick, just a second or two, maybe less. But in that moment, when everything went black, I felt like I was holding my breath underwater. I couldn't see my own hand in front of my face, and it felt like something could have been inches away and I'd never know. My heart was racing so hard I swear I could feel it in my throat. I stood perfectly still, like moving would somehow make it worse, like maybe the dark would notice me if I made a sound. When the lights snapped back on, it took me a second to really look around, and that's when I saw it. The storage room door wasn't closed anymore. I knew I hadn't touched it. I'd been nowhere near it. It was open just enough that I couldn't see inside, just enough that it looked like it had been waiting for me to notice. I stared at it, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe the draft from the door at the top of the stairs, maybe just the house settling. But my stomach twisted, and I felt that cold, crawling feeling all over again. I didn't believe myself, not really. The air felt thicker the longer I stood down there, like even breathing took effort. The furnace kicked on again, but this time it didn't sound right. It wasn't that low, steady hum I was used to. It felt louder, harsher, almost angry. The metal groaned, and for a second I thought it might burst or something. The noise filled the whole space, swallowed up every thought I was trying to hang on to, and then, as if that wasn't enough, I saw the storage room door open again. It wasn't wide open, just enough to show that dark sliver inside, but somehow that made it worse. The black beyond the door felt thicker than the rest of the cellar, like if I stared at it long enough something would start to take shape. I kept telling myself not to look, not to think about what might be in there, but I couldn't help it. I felt like the door was daring me to come closer, like it was part of some game I didn't understand. I don't know where the burst of courage came from, but suddenly I was moving. I ran at the door and slammed it as hard as I could, like that would make it stay shut this time, like that would make everything stop feeling so wrong. The sound of it echoed, but the relief didn't come. I stepped back, heart hammering, watching that door like I expected it to swing open again. The second I blinked, I kept whispering in my head that I was overreacting, that this was nothing, but deep down I knew that wasn't true, and I hated that I was too scared to admit it out loud. I don't even know what I was doing in that moment, just standing there, I guess. Too wired to sit, too scared to leave. I was trying so hard to convince myself I was okay that I'd imagined the sounds, the door, the way everything felt off. And then I heard it. A voice, low, rough, like it hadn't been used in a long time. It came from the far corner, near the old card table, so soft that for a second I thought maybe it was in my head, maybe I was losing it. But I turned, and he was there, sitting at the table, hunched over like he'd been there the whole time, just waiting. His face was pale and sunken, his eyes hollow in a way I can't describe. The whole room seemed to shrink, like the walls had moved in closer without me noticing. My legs felt like they didn't belong to me anymore. Heavy, rooted. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything at all, but I just stood there, staring at him, like my body couldn't decide what to do next. My mind was racing, trying to catch up, trying to figure out who he was, how he'd gotten there, how long he'd been sitting in that corner watching me. But none of it made sense, nothing fit. All I could feel was this deep, cold panic spreading through me, freezing me in place. I kept thinking, this isn't real, this can't be real. But it was, and the worst part was knowing I had no idea what would happen next. I don't even remember deciding to move. One second I was frozen, staring at him like I was glued to the spot, and the next I saw him start to rise. Slow, unsteady, like his bones didn't work right anymore. That was all it took. I didn't care who he was. I didn't care what he wanted or what he said. Something deep inside me just broke loose, and I ran. My legs felt clumsy, like I couldn't get them to work the way I needed, like I was running through water. Every step toward the stairs felt like it took an hour. The cellar seemed bigger somehow, like it was stretching out to keep me there. I could hear my own breathing, ragged and loud in my ears, and my heartbeat felt like it was trying to punch through my chest. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see how close he was, or if he was even following at all. The only thing that mattered was reaching the top of those stairs, getting to the door, getting out. When my hands hit the door, I barely registered the pain from slamming it shut so hard my palms burned. I just threw the bolt, locked it, and stood there shaking, like that thin piece of wood could actually protect me. And even then, even with the door between us, I didn't feel safe. I kept expecting to hear him on the other side, or worse, to see that door handle start to turn. But all I could hear was the sound of my own breath, trying to calm down, and failing. Everything after that is kind of a blur. I remember the flashing lights outside, the voices, too many voices, and the cold draft that came in every time someone opened the door. But mostly, I remember the shaking. I couldn't stop. My hands, my legs, even my teeth felt like they were chattering. People kept asking me things, trying to get me to explain, but the words didn't come out right. It was like I was watching it all from somewhere else, too far away to feel real. When they finally told me who it was, Mark, I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. My mom's cousin, a name I'd heard once or twice in whispers, always in that tone adults use when they don't want you to ask questions. It wasn't just some random man who had gotten in. It was someone who'd been part of the family, someone who used to be at birthdays and holidays, even if I couldn't remember him. And somehow that made it all so much worse. Like the danger hadn't come from outside, but from inside, from somewhere we were supposed to be safe. I keep replaying it in my head. How long was he down there? How many times had I gone down those stairs with him, already hiding in the dark? The thought makes my stomach twist. I try not to let my mind go there, but it always does. And what's worse is knowing I'll never have the answers. That's the part that lingers the most. Not the night itself, but all the pieces I'll never be able to fit together.